Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, and Johnny's away on holiday. We all need one of them every now and then, don't we?
Who is able to have a podcast and just leave it for a week? I mean, I can't believe the lack of professionalism of this dude.
Take your microphone wherever you go, can't you?
Yeah. Says the guy who hasn't been here for 4 weeks or something. But yeah,
You're back though. You're back refreshed. Have you been away?
So I have been away actually. 2 or 3 weeks ago, went on a beautiful holiday with the family and stuff. Haven't done that for feels like forever. Just a lot of work. I graduated, right? I told you that last time. I've got my diploma. Everything's done and dusted. New job is in sort of venture capital investment. Taking me a lot of time. Still using comms and pods just to digest and chat about rugby, which I adore, which I am lucky enough to call a little bit of extra work, but it really doesn't feel like it. And a couple of weeks ago, I just bagged everything. Is that right? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Let's just pick a place and go. And went to the beach with the girls. It was absolutely sensational. Actually rained for the first 2 days. Who cares? We still went swimming. The girls had a blast. It was just one of those moments when, press pause and we realized, bloody hell, life is beautiful. We were super happy. And I came back refreshed. Yeah.
And you went straight from the business and the beach to Clermont. I know you were at Welford Road this weekend, but the week before you were back in Clermont and you were saying you'd barely been back since you retired, since you left.
Yeah, so it's one of those. I don't have a contract to do commentaries in England. It's just I get called up by the producers. Do you fancy this game, that game? So I know obviously we negotiate the fee and all that, but they don't guarantee you anything. And usually they call you up a couple of weeks before. Do you fancy that one? I look at the traveling, I look at the game. Yeah, yes, no. This one, as soon as I saw Clermont Tigers, I mean, my phone it was burning in my pocket. Got it out, texted the BT guy. I was like, mate, you've got to put me on those two games. It's too good to be true. Sort of the Kayser Derby. I was absolutely delighted, but not so much for the actual the game. Both games themselves were okay. The fact that Clermont are just not doing so great at the moment made it a little bit not as good as it should have been, but just the chance to work and have to go back to Clermont and work and have to go back to Leicester was just too good to be true. So I did both games and I absolutely adored it. A proper trip down memory lane. I mean, we can speak about it for days, but I saw old people. I went back into a stadium where I didn't want to be Johnny Big Nuts, rocking up. No, I don't need a ticket to get in there. Come on, it's obviously
red carpet was out, was it?
No, Clermont. Listen, I've got 10 years, 10 years in Clermont, so I was a bit more confident going back to Clermont. I still know everyone, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And actually, for the little story, I saw the VC team. I took them to Clermont, and so I worked on a Sunday. Then we stayed for 2 days together to do a bit of team building. We went walking the mountains on Monday and stuff. I mean, Clermont was surrounded by some beautiful, beautiful little mountains. There's 80 old volcano crater. I don't know how you call that.
Crater, yeah.
Like collapsed volcanoes. There's a chain of 80 of them that are in like the world UNESCO World Heritage. They're classified now, and it's absolutely stunning. The weather was beautiful, and so basically did the game. Amazing stadium. More miles. I mean, if you ever have the opportunity to go to France to watch a game, go to Clermont. It's worth the trip. It's Thomond Park. It's Welford Road. It's one of those stadiums. You close your eyes, you're there and nowhere else. And I saw Ellis Genge and Brett Deeks and Benny Youngs while he was sick. But all these guys, they cut up and they're like, wow, we love this place. It's just special. It's one of those you walk in, you're like, it's a treat to play or to come and watch a game in such an environment. And the fans are up for it. And it was amazing. So no, I was so happy. I was giggling like a little teenager, texting mates before and X, Y, and Z. And actually, I properly got caught up with emotion, like proper. I got there on the day, and in Clermont, people don't really know it because you can't really see it. But obviously, you have the two sort of corridors that face each other with both change rooms, and they come into a little tunnel that comes out. And on either side, you can't see it, but they made those big yellow metallic walls in which every single player that's played for the game does a little signature, and you put the date of your arrival and the date of the departure. And they asked everybody to sign it. There's a big symbolic moment where you go and add your date of departure, And I realized that I never written mine and my date of departure. And I don't know, never thought about it. Never I got asked to do it, whatever. And I was walking there, and I swear to you, I could recognize my footsteps And I was obviously wearing shoes. I wasn't wearing studs like I used to, but I could almost picture myself walking in shorts. If I closed my eyes, I could have felt my studs walking into those steps, having a look at that signature where before every game, I was like, before I put that number when I leave, I just want to know that I've emptied my tank just one more time, you know. Then I got out, I saw this beautiful sparkling stadium with the fans starting to go in. And I was like, wow, this is special. And that really brought me back to those moments. And then you see Dato Zirakashvili, the tight head prop, who's now scrummaging coach for Clermont, and he walks out, and we catch each other's corner of eye. I mean, he's a tight head prop I played the most in my whole career, because Clermont was the club that I played for the most in my whole career, and he was there the whole time. And then Morgan Parra, who just rocks up, that little shit, who's a really good boy, and he's really one of my best mates. And he rocks up, and we exchange a look, and he's the number 9 I played the most in my whole career. So there's just too many people that I care about, a place that I care about so much. And then to top it off, there's Leicester on the other side that's bringing me to another, sort of emotional trip. So no, it was an extraordinary game. I adored it. And the game itself was completely well-deservedly won by Leicester. They completely dominated. Very, very smart, very powerful, very well drilled and organized. And then I smashed some beers with some friends. And then on the Monday, we went up walking in the mountains. Stunning moment of hiking in the mountains. It was amazing. And then at night, we had more time. And I got some of those old fellas, the Datos, the Morgan, the Paul Gidrasiak, the Arthur Ituria, Fritz Lee, all the boys that I really enjoy. And they came up to meet my new team, which was quite a cool moment, the VC team meeting the other team. And we all had a good dinner, because I really love those moments where you can just sit down and take the time to, you never have the time to do anything. This time we took the time to sit down 3-4 hours dinner, and it was just a lovely, lovely moment. So precious, very precious. And on top of that, I was paid. So it's like a triple win.
And you mentioned maybe not quite as emotional at Leicester. You obviously loved your time there, but far less long than you spent at Clermont. But you mentioned Brett Deacon is there. You know him well. You know other guys there well. So we haven't really spoken much about your time at Tigers on here. So it must have been a bit of a culture shock when you went there to Leicester, and still some guys there that you know well.
I think there's always a story behind a move that sort of, you always need to put it into context, right? The reason why I'll speak about Leicester in a second, but the reason why I fell in love so much about Clermont is that, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I traveled a lot when I was young, like a lot. My dad was a strategy consultant. We traveled the world, went to the States, went to China, whatever. And I think from the age of 11 to the age of 18 or 17, whatever, so those 6-7 years, I think in 7 years I did 8 schools, because we traveled so much. And 1 year I even did 2, which was extraordinary. That's where I learned my English. That's the reason why we're speaking to each other now. That's why I always enjoy others. I enjoy learning about others. I've always enjoyed, always been culturally curious. I always, I want to travel. I want to learn about others. I want to speak to others, and I speak Spanish. And, I love others. I want to learn from others, and I love that stuff. That's why even when I was in Stade, I was the one hanging out with all the RGs. When I was in Leicester, I was hanging out with all the RGs too, with Castro and stuff. But then when I was in Clermont, I was always the link between the foreigners and the French. That's why I love European rugby so much, because the refs would come to speak to me, and it was my time. International is my time. I'm not a citizen of the world. Like, I love France, don't get me wrong, and I'm proud to be French, but it was really important to me. And but all that is a gift. But it came with a bit of a downside, which was when I was 14, 15, you would ask me, where are you from? And I would hide I wanted to dig a hole to hide before I answered that question, because I didn't have a bloody clue. I was born in Paris. I would answer Paris, but in total, I lived 4 or 5 years of my life in Paris. So if they ever asked me for a street, for a restaurant, for recommendation, I had no clue. And that was like a problem for me. Not problem, but it bugged me a bit. And in rugby, I don't know how it is in England, but in France, it's super, super regional when you're young, because you start from the age of 6, 7, 8 in your club. Yeah. So where you're from is so important, right? You do things a different way. If you're from Biarritz, you don't do the same thing as in Toulouse, as in Stade, as in Toulon and Nice and all that. It's just Perpignan, the Catalans, it's completely different. So who you are really defines you. And I didn't have a bloody clue. And on top of that, I was the only one from Paris who was getting picked in the under 17s, under 18s, schoolboy rugby, for the French team. So it was a bit of a culture shock for me, and I never really understood, there was a bit of sense of belonging that was missing. I adored Stade. I loved Leicester. But then when I got to Clermont, I really connected with the place. I connected with the people. I connected with the simple, humble, hardworking, genuine, good people. My girls are born there. I was living with my wife there. That's where we got married when we were in Clermont. I really built myself as a man. I did my best rugby years there. And all that is down to also, I was in Leicester. I got contacted by Clermont to sign there. When you could say I was sort of at the peak of my hotness. I was starting hooker for Leicester. We were killing it. I was picking for the French team. The big offer comes, boom, boom, boom. You have loads of clubs coming at you. I go back to Stade because I take the most stupid decision ever, but it's out of not arrogance, but out of pride, because I didn't want Dimitri to tell me that I couldn't go back, and I wanted to see more of my granddad and all that. And then I'm there, and I have a shit season, especially 6 months. Clermont comes back with the same offer, same length of contract, same money, and it just can't work because I need to whatever. It can't work. I've got 2 years instead. And then in the end, I signed in Castres, knowing that 2 months later, I can start looking for somebody else. And Clermont come back with the same offer, the same length, the same thing. And I remember speaking to Vern, and I'm like, I really appreciate the fact that you stuck with me at the time where the press, I was even in the French press, there was like the highs and lows of recruitment one year, and I was in the lows. The year before, I was the hottest thing they've ever seen. I was like the flop of recruitment of Stade Francais because I wasn't performing as I should be. And he's like, mate, if I believe you then, I believe you now. I'm not in here for 6 months. I want to sign you 4 years and you'll be my number one hooker. I was like, poof. It was exactly the type of confidence that I needed. So what I'm trying to say is the reason why I connected so much with that place is because I got given a lot of confidence. I wanted to give it back. I got given a lot of love by the people. I wanted to give it back. I built myself as a bloke there, and I will always cherish it for a long, long time. But Leicester is the same idea. There's always a story behind. I'm in Stade, and I don't want to re-sign. I'm going to re-sign in Stade. I didn't want to go anywhere else in France. But because I learned already how to speak English, I was sort of thinking about it. And then I'm sitting next to, I told you that story. No, I was sitting next to Augustin Pichot. Yeah. And he's like, where are you going to go? Oh, why not Leicester? Done. And it was an incredible move for me. I obviously met my wife there. Good people. And I remember, so when we was in Clermont, I bumped into Brett Deeks, who with the Deacon brothers, and Johnny Murphy and Jordy Murphy, Luke Abraham and Castro and Marcos, and all those guys were really my Richard Blaze, all those boys that I really, really got along well with, and we're a real tight unit of blokes hanging out all together nonstop. And we were speaking with Deeks and stuff before the game, and I was like, it was good. I was like, I'm so happy to see Tigers back. So yeah. And we look at each other. He's like, mate, boy, did we have a good time. and 2007, we had an amazing time. Like at that time, we thought rugby, that's how it was. Kill people on a Saturday, go and smash on a Sunday, have fun, have mates everywhere. We didn't realize how lucky we were. Those 2 seasons I had in Leicester were extraordinary.
And bringing it back to the present, obviously, Brett's still there. Yeah. Borthwick's come in. They're doing a pretty good job of doing it a new way, but also going back to the old school, aren't they? Bringing some of that old school Leicester grit in, and it's showing.
Amazing transformation, which is what hurt me when I was in Clermont. They were like, all the managers were like, 2-3 years are going to be complicated. The next 2 years, I was like, look at Leicester. They turned it around in 18 months. So Steve Borthwick is no fool. He's a really good coach, obviously. But I think the Leicester way was a lot bigger, a lot harder, and a lot more central than anybody gave it ever credit to. It was always a joke. Oh, Leicester, they're a bit rough and tough and crazy Tuesday and all those things. That's all I was hearing. With Crazy Tuesday, because it was full-on brawl, contact session, scrummaging, mauling, and all that. Yeah, okay, but that was the Leicester way. And it was, and as soon as you started deviating a little bit away from it, no, we're not going to go as hard. Just we're okay now because we're winning. Then it's sort of a poisonous little thing that you curse yourself with. And then they put a lot of money on a couple of few players that either were international duty or just weren't fit. And they let go the core of that team. The guys who were always there. The guys who hold the changing room. So there was, and you don't realize how quick it can go bad and how deeply wounded the whole organization can be by just a few little decisions like that. And I think that's what Clermont are experiencing now. And if there's one thing that I really want, is for them to use Leicester as a good example. Set back the Leicester way, the Clermont way, right at the center of things. Take a few decisions and decide one season is going to be transformation, but the rest you put back the ambition and the target all the way at the top. And that's what they did really well. So no, they're properly back. They've gone to the new era of rugby whilst keeping the Leicester way alive. And Welford Road is still a smashing place. And no, they're an incredible club.
And there are parallels between the two clubs as well. Leicester in the Midlands in England, the rough, tough, Clermont, the massive Central. What does Jono say about it in terms of, does he see it as a 2 or 3 year job, or does he think he can do it quicker?
So I don't know if I should say this, but I spoke to him before. I couldn't actually speak to him after I went in their change rooms after the game, the Clermont-Leicester game. They were obviously very disappointed. 19 points lost at home. You know, you sort of think, oof, next week you go to the top of the Prem. It's almost mission impossible with some injuries. So he was really, really peed off, to say the least. But I got to speak to the boys, and they're like, yeah, it's all about leadership. They need not 3 leaders. They need 10 to transform the team. Morgan's going to leave at the end of the season. Camille's going to leave at the end of the season. They can't just always hang on to the same guys. That was our strength when we were there. It was not obviously just about me, but it was like 10 of us. And it's when Rougerie leaves that you realize, bloody hell, he was one hell of a leader. And he's not a player anymore. It's when Julien Bonner leaves and Alexandre Lapendrie is injured and Damien Chouli leaves and Jamie Cudmore in his own way and Nathan Hines in his own way. You know, all those guys. Dato was massive, a huge leader in the change room. And you had 12 of them. You know, they always say the core leadership. You had 12. Now they have 3, 4 who are struggling to impose it on others. And every time things are going wrong, it's like, where's Morgan? Oh yeah, come and save us. You know, come and dug us out. It just doesn't work like that. So they're going to be forced to move on to a new thing with Morgan going to Stade, which is, I think, a great decision for him and for Clermont. They need to move on. And they're going to force out. So I couldn't really speak to Jono after that. And I actually bumped into him at Leicester before the game. And we were looking at the stadium. And it was more, we want to do well. He was really excited about that young 9, who I don't know if you saw the game, that Jono, he's only 18. Wow, was he good. Really good player. Actually, I spoke to Rougerie afterwards. It's one of those scouting stories that he came to watch an academy game of another player, and that Jono was in the opposition team, and they would turn around, who the hell is this 9? Stocky little thing, only 17 or whatever, who was really killing it out there. And they signed. So there are sparks of hope. Him, Cheikh Tibergian, the fullback or wing, who did really well. Raka is still young. Damien Pono is going to come back. They're going to have 2 young 10s, you know, between Jules Plisson and Anthony Belot from Toulon, who's coming. There's still some really good players, and I'm sure, but they need to create their own story. But Jono's description of the situation, and he only left the club in 2017, I think. On the title, he lost it, yeah. He left for Ulster after we won it. So it's only 5 years, right? It's nothing. It's yesterday. And he's like, mate, the decision makers fell asleep at the wheel. That was his quote. So there's a lot of, like I said, little problems: contract decision making, recruitment decision making, general hierarchy and leadership within the team. If you don't push higher, then you just shoot down. You know, it's not an easy road of saying we can cruise. There's no cruising in ultra competition.
We'll come into some of the other games in a minute, but we don't see these 2-legged games very often. So I don't know if you were a fan before these round of 16 games, but have you changed your mind at all? Are you a fan now?
Yeah, I really liked it, I must say. I liked it in the sense that it was exciting. Whatever happened in the game, even if you're going to win by 1 point, but win by 1 point wasn't much because you didn't know what was going to happen. So, you know, it made things super interesting. Yes, I adored the different type of strategy. So typically Clermont-Leicester, Leicester, they really outpunched them by being relaxed, chilled, seizing the opportunities, using kicking game. And on the return leg, it was quite clever because Leicester actually were completely dominating in ball possession, but they were happy of defending. They're like, mate, they're going to play. Their only issue is to play. 19 points down. They have to overly play. If we try to match the play and make a mess out of this game, we actually can, you know, fall on the faces. So they were super smart, ready to suffer. Leicester were ready to suffer. to win that game and paid a tremendous amount of respect to Clermont and be like, all right, you're going to play. We're not going to overly commit in the ruck. And there was some long defensive sequences. I think they tackled, I think it was at the end of the stat, 180 times. And Clermont tackled 70 times. So, and they won again. And when it's the return game, when you win at home after winning by 90 points difference, the first one, it almost shocks you in terms of statistics. I thought they were very respectful and very clever. It was actually a very tough game. It's a bit random. So that made it super interesting in my geeky rugby nose sort of mind. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. The same way that Ulster were like all super happy punching up in the air after winning in Toulouse by 6 points. And then, you know, the magic little man, after a clumsy first 50 minutes, just turned it around the last 30 minutes in Ravenhill. So, no, I thought it was super interesting. The only shame that I thought it was to see multiple, multiple same country confrontations. Yeah. That does make it a little bit. I mean, I thought the whole idea was to prevent them. But you had, you know, Stade against Racing and Bordeaux against La Rochelle and all those things. So, and it's not going to get any better because they play again. I mean, I was looking at La Rochelle. Imagine if they beat Bordeaux, then they get, Montpellier at home. They can do it. But if they win, they could get Racing. And then they could get Toulouse in the final. Yeah. So they could do, you know, a whole Champions Cup without ever facing what makes the beauty out of this competition, which is the clash of cultures and people and teams and nationalities and all that.
If the French teams dominate as much as they are, you can't keep them apart forever.
Yeah, true that.
And in terms of that French success, there have been so many teams in the knockout stages. What do you put it down to? Obviously, we know that rugby in France is flying at the moment internationally. Last year, 3 of the semi-finalists were French. Could be the same this year. Is it down to the clubs being better organised than they ever have done before, better coached? Is it the financial power? Combination of all of the above?
Is it fair to say that the last 2 years that you're talking about when Saracens got relegated? That's number one. I just think that, and to my delight, that the French teams are finally falling in love with that competition as much as Racing, Clermont, Toulouse, that everybody's keening up for it. The main difference is La Rochelle, probably influenced by Jono Gibbes and Ronaldo Garana. And I think the French fans are falling in love with the competition too. They want to see it. There's obviously an economical battle, so it's down to maybe a bit more tightness in terms of how many English clubs can genuinely go for it. It used to be sort of 6, now it might be only 3. You know, if that's fair, given that the Saracens are not in it. Whereas France has gone the other way. It used to be 3, and now, to be fair, it's more like 6 or 7 teams that can actually seriously go for it. Well, 7 or 8 qualifies, but 8 qualify. So, 6 at least can really go for the title. And that they're really up for it. So that change of mentality for me is ideal, is perfect, is where it should be.
And the other general theme of the weekend, more negatively, was cards. 20 cards in the 8 Champions Cup games in all, which equals the most ever in a round of that competition. We're seeing a sending off every other game at the moment in Super Rugby. You did the Paris Derby as well, which saw Stefan Ivalu sent off, Ollie Chesham, obviously, in the Leicester Clermont game. The 20-minute red cards being trialled in Super Rugby. World Rugby said last week they might want to expand that. What do you make of it all? Is it the player behaviour that's the problem? Is it the officiating? Is it both?
So I don't buy the against Ireland it killed the game because what's his name, Charlie Hewells, I think he was, got a red card. You know, mate, he bollocked the guy who didn't have the ball. Yeah, it's the risk. It's rugby. I don't think that should be sanctioned by 6 months away. But a red card is a red card. Done. Right. Ollie Chesham, did you look at his reaction? He turns around, he says, sorry, I think it was Raka, or I can't remember if it was Raka or no, it was Samizela. And he turns around, he says sorry, he goes, he gives him a hug, and he goes. Mate, that's all the answer that you need. That means that rugby players know, I cocked up, I just missed him, it's a little bit too high, I could have hurt him, red card. The Naivalu try really annoyed me, like we were going, oh yeah, but the technique and this one, but look at the state of Louis Dupichot. Mate, he's on the floor, head, scraping the floor over 4 meters, completely knocked the life out of him because because of that poor technique, we're talking about the shoulder, yes, but they didn't see that he actually connected head on head just after. You know, he goes shoulder and then head on head. Does he on purpose try to hurt him? No, of course not. I'm not blaming Naivalu. I'm just saying poor technique has to be sanctioned. Charlie Ewell's poor technique has to be sanctioned. Is it part of rugby? Absolutely. He's jacked up and he's pumped up and he wants to fly. And I've made stupid mistakes because I got overexcited, and that should have been pinged, yes. The only gray zone, which is the tough one, is the contact in the air, because at the moment sometimes they just don't take the same decisions. I don't know if you saw the Ulster-Toulouse one. At one point, Thomas Ramos falls on his head, does like a 180-degree spin in the head, falls on it. No, he committed to it. What on earth is he on about? He didn't even try. He barely tried to jump. He was a week too late on that contest. I mean, that's as clear as it should have gone. But for me, the only gray zone is Xander Fagerson that clear out Scotland-Wales. Yeah. That's the really tough one. What do you do with them? That's the only really, really tough call on that. When it's a clear accident, I don't really know what he can change. That's my only question. If the answer is the player can't change anything to it, if it's a contact in the air, well, you got to read better. You only got to go, you got to slow down your feet, go. If it's Charlie Ewell's, well, you just can't whack up a guy who doesn't have the ball. If you're not sure if you're going to commit, go slowly, push him off, go again. To the point of potentially missing the tackle. Don't get me wrong, and that's the outcome. Oli Chesum, then mate, if that means you can't dominate the tackle when you're chasing him from behind. Naivalu, you can't prevent the try. You simply can't. If the guy is a meter away and you're trying to whack him, you've got to go for the legs. There's almost zero chance for you to prevent him to score. That's the reality. But he can make it another decision. Xander Fagerson, what else are you going to tell him? He's a tight head prop. He's here to clean rucks. He's flying into this. The guy lifts exactly at the wrong moment, and he clocks him in the head. The reality is that he can seriously hurt him. So that's where potentially the orange card could be a good, or not the orange card, but the 20-minute red card could be a good idea. For me, there's already a 20-minute thing, which is, does the guy get suspended 6 weeks, or does the guy not get suspended at all?
So maybe it's the sanctions rather than the sanctions off the field rather than the sanctions on the field that they need to look at. But in terms of,
in my mind, yeah,
what they said last week, looking at Super Rugby, it doesn't matter whether it's a shoulder to the head or getting taken out in the air. If you get a red card, 20 minutes, and then they bring someone else on, if they were to say, we want to expand that and bring it into the top 14 or the Champions Cup, you'd say?
I'd say rugby is complicated enough. And that we've got to stop changing the rules all the time, because I'm getting cross-eyed. And that the only thing that I'm ready to listen to is when the player's attitude cannot be changed.
And when we were talking before about the French club's success in the past couple of years and the fact that some of them are taking it more seriously, one club that hasn't always taken it seriously is Montpellier. They beat Quins over 2 legs by a single point. But before that second leg, they got a lot of criticism in the English media, made 13 changes between the 2 legs. What did you make of that? Because it was still a strong side, wasn't it? It
was a strong side. I think it was a bit disrespectful not to give the coaches a bit of credit for knowing their team better than anybody else, and maybe knowing players better than the English press would know them, which is fair. I do think I saw Olivier Azam put a really funny tweet where he's like, actually we take it really seriously. It's a bit disrespectful. That's what winning gets you, gives you the right to fight back and to throw those comments. I think they're a little bit irrelevant. I don't think they should care about what the press say. They don't dictate, what is the truth or not. They only know what the truth is within their team. But it's a reality that maybe not in that example, but a lot of teams in France didn't jouer le jeu, play it 100%, which digs a hole and throws a dagger at this competition every time that you don't see the big names on the field at the same time, because those are the clashes that you want to see. But look, they were proven right.
You mentioned the Toulouse game. They won it by a single point over 2 legs as well against Ulster. Antoine Dupont, you can't keep him out of the headlines, but you also mentioned he wasn't playing very well for 50 odd minutes. And do you think Ulster might have held on if it hadn't been for that Tom O'Toole red card?
I don't. Again, that red card. How the hell does Rob Ayring not get anything? He throws a shoulder in the face too. He doesn't even get a yellow. Nothing. So that's where rugby gets it wrong. It's complicated, right? If you apply one rule, you apply it all the time, whatever. I didn't mean that Antoine Dupont didn't play particularly well. I mean, Toulouse as a whole didn't actually play that well. I saw a lot of drop balls. I saw some misunderstanding. I saw some silly decision making. But they put six faces together. They go forward all the time. Meafou comes in. He's unstoppable. Antoine Dupont goes at 10, dummies, and scores the important part under the sticks. You're like, is there anything they can't do, those kids? They really are that good. And you're playing without Julien Marchand, who's still injured. You're playing, without a couple of guys. Both Arnold, second row brothers were out. So they're playing with no more second rows almost towards the end. They've got a few guys that are missing in that back line, and it's been very problematic. And they still killed it. So I'm very, very impressed with them. I think that's the sign of the true greats when you're like, oh, you lose 6 points at home? It's Toulouse. You just don't know. And they did not look like they were overly, how you say that? Not moved, but disappointed or down by the defeat, And I was listening to the game. It was commentated in French. And there was the commentator that Julien Candelon, former sevens winger from Perpignan, who's a really nice guy, was saying, well, we saw them at the hotel. And we actually turned around. The sort of the team manager, Jérôme Casalbou. Don't know if that rings a bell. He was number 9 for France. He's won the Champions Cup in '96 against Cardiff or something. He's won top 14, 3-4 times. Clément Poitronneau is the skills coach. Virgile Lacombe is the scrummaging coach. Jean Bouillou is the lineouts coach. They've all won either Champions Cup or few Brennus. The president of the club, Lacroix, was a former back row who won the Champions Cup and probably won the Premiership through. I mean, they are, how do you say that? They sweat out titles and CVs. Oh, I mean, I'm pretty sure the groundsman is probably like a Brennus hold-up winner. So they are pretty incredible in terms of knowledge of what it is to win, knowledge what it is to have that mentality of never giving up, of always rising up to a challenge and all that stuff. I mean, look, I was banging on about Jono Gibbes, Ronan O'Gara, the most experienced European coaching duo. Oh, look at Toulouse. They've got like 8 of them within their coaching staff and their administration in roles that you would never even think of. So, yeah, it's that. I think that really, shined or was underlined by the performance in Ravenhill. They just never seemed to panic. And they backed themselves to the moon and they delivered, even if, especially the first half, was actually a relatively average performance without an intercept try by Romain Tamac, who pretty much runs the field. It's a complicated one.
And they're going up against another side who the European Cup is in their DNA as well. In Munster, in the quarterfinals, they did well to see off Exeter fairly comfortably over 2 legs. Graham Rowntree, who you will know from your Leicester days, he just retired, hadn't he, and was an assistant coach when you were at Tigers. He's stepping up to be the Munster head coach next season. What do you make of them at the moment? And have you seen this where they're going to have to play their home quarterfinal in Dublin instead of Limerick because Ed Sheeran's playing a concert? What do you make of that?
Yes, mate. So Graham Rowntree wasn't assistant coach at Leicester. He just left. I think either he got picked up by England or he went for the under-20s and stuff, but he was always around, very super nice guy. And I had the pleasure of bumping into him when I was playing for France, and he was actually coaching the forwards of England. And we were, chatting about X, Y, and Z. Very approachable, super nice, outstandingly strong, ear work, like unreal. That's all I could look at. I mean, he's got massive little things next to him, but he jokes about it. He's a legend of a bloke, really good at his stuff, and ends up having a stellar coaching career between the Lions and Munster now, head coach, and I think he's going to do a great job. I think I'm a huge believer that you need to have a charismatic coach who's got a lot of empathy, a lot of love, a lot of respect, and he's definitely all the way up there for that. Munster is one of those rugby myths, incredibly regionally, how do you say that, ingrained or structured team that they know their stuff. They know how to do things. You talk about the Leicester way, the Clermont way, the Saracens way. There's definitely the Munster way. because they're just a team like no other in the world, which is the huge compliment in my eye. They've got a stadium like no other in the world. Huge compliment again. They've got fans that you can't, mistake for any other fans in the world. So that will be a proper game of rugby. That's exactly what I love about rugby. Munster Toulouse quarterfinal, not in Thomond Park, unfortunately, because of Mr. Sir Ed Sheeran. And you've got to move out. But look, that's just rugby how it is, huh? Racing built their new stadium. They're saying, no, so that date. That's Rolling Stones, Madonna, Beyonce. You guys can bugger off and play somewhere else. So it's the reality of rugby now. You got to pay the players.
And Toulouse did beat them at Thomond Park last season.
Yeah.
So, they wouldn't have been intimidated by going there anyway. But if you are Toulouse, you're probably thinking, I'd rather it was at the Aviva.
Maybe, but Munster are capable of putting 40,000 Munster fans at Aviva or 50,000 Munster fans at Aviva. That will scream 5 times more than, I don't know how many there are at Thomond Park, maybe 15 or 20,000 or something. So it's a different setup. It's still a very important venue for Irish rugby, and so Munster can thrive on it. I just think it's going to be a fantastic game, and even more people will be able to assist and to cheer them on. So, Tom, you even better.
And were you surprised by how comfortable it was for La Rochelle over 2 legs against Bordeaux, given what we've seen from Bordeaux in the past few years?
Yeah, 3 legs actually, because there was that top 14 one before.
True.
So that made it extra special between Racing and Stade and La Rochelle and Bordeaux. It must have been weird weeks when you play 3 times the same team for the same result. Funnily enough, Racing beating them 3 times and La Rochelle beating them 3 times. So that will be a tough one, a tough pill to swallow for Christophe Furios. I was very surprised of how confidently they beat them. Really impressed with La Rochelle. They're extremely powerful. They're a big old bunch of players. I think in my mind they're even better than last time they went around and lost to Toulouse in the final. I just feel that they've got that extra bit of experience. Victor Vito is probably not having the same type of season, but Greg Aldrit is even better. They have Jonathan Danty now at 12, and he's a handful as soon as he gets properly going. Winnie Antonio has got better. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I just feel he really has, stepped up to a whole different dimension, probably helped by his positioning in the French team. So really impressed by La Rochelle. A little bit disappointed by Bordeaux. I think something's unclicked there. Probably they have too many injuries. They keep on struggling with depth. They just can never field absolutely everyone. And I just hope it's not one of those seasons where they disappoint again, because I remember there was one season that got canned in top 14 and they were first. And they always said I was an outrage and this and that. And this one they were doing really well and now they've dropped off. So now it'll be a very tense moment of the season, but I think deep down Christophe Furios is clever enough to say they didn't have the depth in the squad to go both competitions. So actually it's sort of suits them to be able to focus on top 14, because they're gonna have to roll their sleeves up in the next, I think there's 4 or 5 rounds left, and it's gonna be properly intense.
Right, we will look ahead to what's coming up in the next few weeks very shortly, but it's about time we did our meter moment of the week, isn't it? So what have you got for us, Benji?
Oh, mate, there's plenty, but I'm going to be extremely boring. I'm going to have to say the little genius man, Antoine Dupont, scoring the 78th minute at number 10 under the sticks to make the conversion easy wheezy, makes rugby look ridiculously easy and effortless as soon as you go there. So there's loads of moments. There's the the Racing Stade with Toulouse Aviano, who was incredibly good for Stade, especially in the first half. There's Clermont stepping up at that really young number 9, who's 18 years old, Joulot, who I thought was incredible and represents all the future bright lights of Clermont. There's, a ton of performances. There's the moments where Toulouse on their line start playing from their own zone and Thomas Ramos chucks it to Piato Movaca, who then, doesn't want to concede a 5-minute try, whatever, all that stuff. But that final moment where you're like, right, what exactly do we need? There's 3 minutes left. We need to score points under the stakes just to be sure. Okay, kick it to touch. Bang, 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 bang. It's almost like Antoine Dupont's like, boys, just put me at 10 because it'll be easier for me to just walk in on my own. And he goes bang, 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 left, right, and he comes out and he scores almost effortlessly. So a moment of the week has to be Antoine Dupont, pretty much giving the win, a crucial win, with scoring that try for Toulouse in Ravenhill against Ulster at 78th minute.
We should get someone to do a running total over the past year or so in the next couple of years. How many times Antoine Dupont will win the Meter moment of the week?
I think I'm going to skip his name now. The 9 from Toulouse. Just him, but that guy. But, I never mention his name again.
There we go. That was Benji's Meter moment of the week. And Meter is the world's #1 wireless meat thermometer, recently making over 11 million cooks better with their game-changing app and completely wireless Bluetooth meat probe. You can use it on a barbecue, in the oven, or in a pan, and you can get your hands on one at meter.com. Plus, we've upped the stakes, Benji, recently, and you can now get 20% off any full price item instead of 10%. All you have to do is enter the code FrenchPod20 at checkout. That's FrenchPod20 instead of FrenchPod10, and you'll get 20% off any full price item at meter.com.
Barbecue season, boys. Barbecue season. Get them coming.
We haven't got long to wait until the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup either, only a few weeks. Are we going to see 3 French teams in the semis again or not?
Right, so in my mind, so tell me if I'm wrong, but on the left, I see Racing Sale, La Rochelle, Montpellier, and the other side I see Munster, Toulouse, and Leicester, Leinster. Correct?
All the titles, yeah, on that side.
Bloody hell! With Benny Young's telling me after the game, Leinster, he's like, yeah, but mate, if you got to play them, you might as well play them at home in the quarter straight away and just see how good we are. And I think it was the perfect attitude. It was going to be one proper game. So Toulouse having to go in Munster, that's a big ask. But I think if they get a couple of guys back, if there's one team that can do it, it's them. La Rochelle, Montpellier, obviously a French team in the semi, but I reckon it will be La Rochelle. I think so, intuitively, at home. But Montpellier, they're doing an incredibly strong season, and they're really holding up high, their level and their rhythm and their tempo and their intensity. And then Racing against Sale at home in Paris, I see Racing going through. So La Rochelle Racing, they'll definitely be a French club in the final. And if there's one team that can do it to go into the semi, it's Toulouse. But Toulouse will have a seriously tough draw. Ulster, Munster, Leinster, maybe, or Leicester to then go to the final. That's a tough one. So French team in the final, definitely. 2 French team in the finals, I think is very probable.
And let's have a very quick look at the top 14 as well, because we're very much getting down to the business end of the season now. You mentioned it, 4 games to go in the regular season. Your mates Franck Azema and Julien Dupuis at Toulon are putting a hell of a run together. It's going to be tough, arguably too tough, but can they do it? Can they make the playoffs despite being nearly bottom not so long ago?
They are definitely charging back. But when you look at the side, did you look at their side?
Yeah.
I mean, they've only got Sergio Parise, Facundo Issa, Charles Olivon now in the back row. All right. It's not too bad. They've got Eden Edzebet with either Romain Tao or the big Brian Alioulunise. They've got Brooks, the former guy from Northampton, Christopher Toulefeu at hooker, Jean-Baptiste Gros at Lucid, who's with the French team, Baptiste Serin, Carbonel, Duncan Paeva, but Erito. They've got Chelsea Colby. They've got Gabin Villiers on the wing. Emmerich Luc and Gabin Villiers, who was one of the best players of the last Six Nations. Yeah. Hey, bloody hell. Of course they should be chasing. And the weird thing is, because they're doing really well in Challenge Cup too, I think they beat Treviso. Yeah. And they're through. Because Challenge Cup does qualify you for top 6, I reckon they will concentrate on Challenge Cup. And the finals in Marseille. Marseille is 15 minutes away from Toulon. So it will be a huge sort of club moment for it. I mentioned all those guys, but they don't have 600 of them, and they've got Sergio, who is obviously getting on a little bit, even though he might resign for another year or so. He's just never ending. So I think they will fall short of the top 6, because I know those races, and everybody's like, I'm super close. We're only 8 points, 7 points, 6 points. Yeah, but that means the teams ahead of you, they need to lose twice. You need to win twice, but they need to lose twice. And nobody really loses twice in that league at that pace. So you're always sort of catching up, but a bit too much. So I don't think they'll make it. I think they'll concentrate on Challenge Cup. I reckon they'll win the Challenge Cup if they don't face Saracens too quick. at least get to the final in Marseille, and that'll be a proper game.
Toulon, Toulouse in Toulon this weekend. Huge game. That'll tell us a lot about whether they will.
Yeah, 100%. But Toulouse will have to rotate, mate. I reckon they'll be flogged after the last 2 weekends. So it'll be interesting.
And the top two going head-to-head this weekend as well. We mentioned Bordeaux a bit earlier. Montpellier flying. Bordeaux have lost 8 of their last 9 games in all competitions.
Unreal. It's unreal. It's very hard to comprehend and to understand. And Montpellier flying. I think Bordeaux will have another really tough night. Montpellier are no fun at the moment. They rotated, probably thinking about that game. That's where it tells you where their priorities are, for sure. And it's going to be very complicated for Bordeaux. A bit hard to comprehend, but Montpellier deservingly all the way at the top.
And come on then, Clermont in 8th at the moment. Are they going to sneak in or not?
My heart says yes. My brain says no. It's complicated. Got some injuries. Again, it's not like they're 2 points behind. They're like 4 or 5 points behind or something. It's a tough one, and they've got some proper big games coming up. So I think the only way that I was speaking to the boys at the end, I think their last home game is against Montpellier, or either they go to Montpellier or they host Montpellier in Clermont. I can't remember which one both.
They're at home to Montpellier.
So if Montpellier are already qualified, there's a chance that they might give that one up, and that could be the decider for Clermont. But I think it will be very, very tight.
Well, we might as well call it then. Let's not sit on the fence. 4 games to go. Currently in there.
Oh mate.
The top 2 are gone, aren't they? La Rochelle.
Save that for Johnny next week. It's fine. Just leave me the easy stuff.
Trust me, we'll be putting him on the spot as well. La Rochelle, Cast, Toulouse and Racing. And you mentioned points on the board is what you want. It's tight below them.
I still think it's going to be complicated because there's also Lyon behind. So I reckon the top 6 will not change. And that Montpellier, Bordeaux, La Rochelle, Castres, who will hang on by a thread unless they get pumped. Well, it's basically this weekend because Clermont are going in Castres this weekend, but I don't see them. I'll stick to it. Montpellier, Bordeaux, La Rochelle, Castres, Toulouse, Racing will qualify in my mind. Thanks,
Benji. A big thanks to all you guys for listening as well. Make sure you hit subscribe, leave us a nice review if you can. Check us out on Rugby Pass as well as on YouTube, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Au revoir, Benji.
Cheers, mate. Pleasure.